Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Astral Tourist, where we take astral detours into the unknown. In this episode of the Astral Tourist, I share my very first successful astral projection while flying on a commercial airplane. This is so huge for me. I've been astral projecting for many years, since I was a baby, but I've never been able to do it in an airplane. And the main reason is because I don't usually sleep on flights. Or if I do, I just kind of nod off for only moments and my head pops back up. But this was a 15-hour flight and I did nod off finally. So yay! Finally I had a chance to try it. What started as a simple intention to pop out to the wing turned into a launch into deep space, where I witnessed a futuristic space station. Well, I didn't just witness it, I was there, and a moon being terraformed into a high-tech energy relay hub. This is where astral projection just gets super exciting, when you're like in the future or in a futuristic type place and getting to see this kind of stuff. And as if that wasn't wild enough, upon drifting off again, I woke up momentarily, like, I don't know, maybe a minute I was awake at the most, and I fell back into a slumber, kind of. I say a slumber, a light sleep, I guess. My body was in a lot of pain by then. I entered a surreal cloudscape of pink volcanic formations. Was I inside someone else's dream, or a shared astral dimensional layer of some kind? Tune in and decide for yourself. This one's for the frequent flyers of the astral realm. Okay, so instead of popping out to the wing on the plane like I had intended, I had the blackout phase and became lucid aboard a futuristic looking space station. Others were present and there to watch a moon being terraformed. A helpful male being began sharing about it with me telepathically. He said his people had terraformed one of their moons, and it looked like to me like it was about 5 times the size of Earth's moon, give or take. I'm just looking at it and trying to gauge, at the time. And, I do my best to try to get the details right. So I could only guess. But it looked about 5 times the size of Earth's moon to me. The surface had been smoothed out and carved into panel-like sections, kind of like on a soccer ball. Each panel was marked with either a 7 or a 5. Now again, remember, our minds translate everything we're seeing and experiencing in the astral. I don't know if these numbers were literal in that space, or my mind was trying to label what it was seeing in terms I could understand. Okay, so the being I was communicating with explained that they had converted this moon into a kind of power relay station. I watched along with the others, and when I say others, I'm trying to think how many were really there, and I don't think it was more than like 20, maybe less, like 15-ish. I'm just guessing, but there were others in the, in this space station. We were in this room looking out at this moon and what they were doing. So yeah, I think 15, 20 at the most. And they were layering a thin metallic looking film over half of this moon's surface. It was something akin to tin foil, but more thinner. I want to say fluid, but it wasn't a fluid. Maybe like chrome-like or something like that, or maybe like mercury. But again, it wasn't a fluid. So that's the best I could make out of that. And it had an iridescent shine, but it wasn't too shiny either. And then it kind of went more pale as it was covering the surface. And the being I was speaking with told me this coating, the special coating they were layering it with, allowed them to project and receive signals far into and back from very deep space. Like he was showing me this image like way, way out there, like not even regular deep space. This was a big effort for them. They wanted to see what more is like way out there. And I was about to ask what the numbers on the panels meant, hoping maybe he could tell it to me in different terms or in his own terms or something, when I felt that familiar pull and was suddenly snapped back into my weary, achy body on the plane. And yeah, we were in economy class, so I was, in a lot of pain. And that's normal for me on longer flights, let alone this one, right? So, but again, I was only awake for maybe a minute or so. I don't know. And I was in a lot of pain, just hoping I would fall asleep again and not have to think about the pain. And I didn't take an Aleve or something because I tend to bruise on flights, and that would mean even more bruising. So I skipped the Aleve and hoped I would just, get through it. So I nodded off again, and I experienced something a bit more abstract. I found myself floating in front of a panoramic, rectangular display, like a super giant rectangular window, only there's this whole display across it, like this huge artsy scene kind of thing. Puffy clouds floated across the scene, and they were completely covering the scene, by the way, too. There weren't just a few going across. The whole scene had clouds everywhere, puffy clouds. But they were moving like Harry Potter style. Only it wasn't like just in a picture. This was all very 3D-ish. Some were tinged with pink and others white. I think there were, maybe a few tinges of peaches and violets. And I don't know if you can hear what's going on outside, but there's a thunderstorm right now. So this microphone is noise canceling, so I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, the clouds began forming into volcano shapes, which were also made out of clouds. So these volcanoes, all these little volcanoes were forming, and they were made out of clouds too. And then they were slowly erupting in bursts of even more clouds. It was so trippy. The whole thing felt wonderfully surreal. It looked more and more like a 2D diorama as I drifted closer to it. Like it was all 3D and everything, but then as I came in closer to it, because I was moving in closer and closer and closer, it began to look more 2D-ish, even though it was still 3D. But then it began to also resemble like paper, like it was made out of paper, but still had all the colors, and it was still 3D, and it was all like this big mesh of images and feelings and everything. And I've been wondering since then if I may have tuned into someone else's dream, or like a shared astral dimension on the plane with someone else, because this isn't the type of dream or astral projection I would normally have. I mean, yeah, I'm a trippy gal, but this isn't the kind of thing I would normally see myself, and my brain just doesn't really work that way. So I'm thinking I was tuning into someone else, or like a shared little dimension or pocket dimension maybe. I was out of my body, I could tell that, but it also felt like a little lucid dreamish too at the same time. So maybe I popped out and then was like inside someone else's lucid dream. I don't know. Let me know what you think, please. But it was pretty cool, and it got me not thinking about the pain I was in. So yay. Thanks for tuning in to the Astral Tourist here. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and share it with other curious souls exploring the edges of reality. Have you ever projected mid-flight? I would love to hear all about it. Please drop a comment. I'd love to hear your stories. Also, I know I've been away a while, and people have questions about some of the other experiences I've had. So please make your comments and questions. I will do another Q&A. And also I have another astral projection to share, but I want to share that in a separate episode because it was not on the plane, and this one's just for the ones I had on the plane. My first astral projection on the plane, followed by whatever number 2 was there. Happy astral travels, everyone. Lots of love.